For me and a person at a certain point in life, having less stress, less confrontation, lower cost of living will extend my life. Simple as that. And I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine I'm like, I will live longer by leaving the United States. And just so happens that Kenya is the country that's going to help me do that. So to me, it's a matter of life and death. We will soon be occupying this space with business that I've helped develop here in Kenya, selling designer used clothes from the United States, from New York City in particular, called Everything Fly. Baraka Mall on Naivasha Road, specifically in the fashion side of New York City. Being able to just discover yourself here for me has been one of the greatest rewards. Hello, my name is Kevin Morrison. I am here in Nairobi, Kenya as an expat from the United States. I've been here for 9 years, and during that time I've had an excellent journey learning Kenya, understanding Kenya, but also understanding the continent overall. Well, what brought me to this part of the world was part of what's keeping me here. Back 14 years ago, I was invited to an event in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the United States. The event was hosted by an organization called the African and Caribbean Business Council of Philadelphia. Their purpose of the organization was to connect the American small and medium-sized businesses with the African immigrant small and medium-sized businesses that were in the Philadelphia area. And then, of course, if you're connecting to the African immigrant in the United States, you're also going to be eventually connecting to their home countries. So there were members from Cameroon in the association, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, many different places, South Africa. So their goal was to invite other small business owners in the United States to come visit their home countries. So I sat down in a room full of people, and the ambassador of Burkina Faso, the ambassador of Ghana, the ambassador of Botswana, and the ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago, all ambassadors from their countries to the United States, of course, this was in the United States, invited us to come visit their country to explore and understand the business opportunities and the business climate in their country. So that's how I first started coming to the continent. Well, I was born and raised in Connecticut, which is on the east coast of the United States. It's north of New York and south of New York City and south of Boston, just to give people a geographical understanding. And when I was a young man, say in my teens, hip hop music, rap music, started to emphasize the importance of understanding who we were as Black people, as African Americans, as FBA, BIPOC. There's so many names now but they emphasize, your descendants were from this part of the world, from the African continent. And more than likely, all of your descendants were from there in some form or fashion because of the melanin in your skin. So based on the fact that we weren't taught anything from elementary school all the way through high school, or not much about where we came from ancestrally, hip hop music told us to reconnect. So that was my first direction, to say reconnect to the continent. And then from there, from Afrocentric fashion, kente cloths, to understanding who are some of the people that help shape and lead the continent in its current form, such as Kenya's first president, the Mau Mau. I'm talking about specifically Kenya, but also all other parts of the continent, because most African Americans don't know where they came from, especially at that time, because there were no DNA tests. Now you can do a DNA test and say, okay, 50% of your DNA shows that you're from this part of Africa, but we didn't have that back then in the 80s. So I always had a desire to come to the continent. But, like many other people, I didn't do the extra homework to see what it took to come here. First misperception in America, it's expensive. Well, I live in New York, near New York City, and that airport goes everywhere. And it's probably one of the least expensive ways to travel internationally, if not the cheapest part of the country to travel from internationally. So it wasn't expensive, but I thought that. So my desire to reconnect to my African roots was the first reason. But remember, I was a teenager. I didn't come here till I was in my late 30s, early 40s. So it took me 20 years to figure out that I could come here. And I came here once I was invited. And the rest is history, as they say. I've been in love with it ever since, all 9 countries that I've visited. And Kenya won out because Kenya has more, at the time, in my impression, had more business opportunities than the other 8 countries that I visited, including, South Africa and Nigeria. Typical day. So we have 2 businesses running simultaneously. We have consulting work that we do here on the continent in import-export. And then we also have a business in the United States, which is a training institution. So a typical day for me can be a normal 8-hour work day plus all the other activities involved in the work day, or it could be a 14-hour work day and still have to eat and sleep and do all those other things. So my days are never typical, and the reason why they're never typical is because part of what we do is help the diaspora learn about what it's like to live in Kenya, to do business in Kenya, and that is through consultation. And then the other part, like I said, with the training business still back in the States, I may be reviewing curriculum. I may be having to teach a class. We have recruiting sessions. As a matter of fact, today is a day where we have recruiting sessions for those classes. So at 8:30 p.m. tonight, I'll be on an online meeting recruiting people for our classes in the States. So if that's typical, then that's my typical day. So we are at Wazawazi, a leather goods manufacturer here in Nairobi, Kenya. And the person next to me is Chebet Mutai, the founder and creative director, everything, the be all and end all that is Wazawazi. As you know, we've been doing a day in the life, what I do here, how the diaspora from the United States in particular, and the Kenyans have come together to create community, a community around business, a community around culture, and Chebet is one of our biggest supporters and a benefactor of the community that we've built here. That Chebet and her brand name in the States, which is Chebet Mutai, has since migrated from Nairobi to the United States. So Chebet and I have spent a lot of time together over the last years. Once again, I told you, in the States, we've learned very little about what the continent has produced and what it is producing now. And when I walked into this leather goods shop, along with several others here in Nairobi, I said to myself, this leather good is just as good, if not better, than what we consider premium in the United States. And I'm not going to name any brand names. People watching me, I'm pretty much sure they understand what I'm talking about. So Kenya's leather goods manufacturing is on par with anybody else in the world. So we made it a mission for us to bring that manufacturing and awareness to the United States. So Chebet and I have been to Boston, New York, Chicago, and we have some wild stories that we're not going to share now of our travels. But ultimately, it resulted in Chebet establishing a business operations in Denver, Colorado, and an online presence featuring her skill, her vision, and Kenyan leather. Kenya wasn't last on the list of the 9 countries. Kenya was like 6 or 7. So I'd already been to Ghana, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, South Africa, Botswana, Eswatini. So Kenya was 7th. So by the time I got to Kenya, my impressions were great. I mean, they were the same. They were similar to my impressions when I first landed in Ghana and Nigeria. And then after I visited Kenya, I also went to Rwanda and Tanzania. So my impressions were all positive. I mean, even of those 9 countries, Burkina Faso at the time was the poorest. Even Burkina Faso made a positive impression for me. And, I didn't have the typical Western expectations of negative expectations. My expectations were all positive. Simple as that. Our monthly expenses consist of obviously rent, electricity, internet, and food for a bunch of people. There's 7 or 8 of us in this house. But perfect example, and this is one of the things I tell my friends and family in the States all the time. The cost of supporting that many people is affordable for me as an American. I know Kenyans always say, oh, that's because you're the American dollar, this, and that. But to do this in the States would require hundreds of thousands of shillings, if not close to 1 million shillings a month. And it's nowhere near that here. Nowhere near 1 million shillings for me to be able to support everyone here in the house, feed, like I said, all those things. So that's part of the super stress level that exists in the United States for the average American. The average American literally has to think about every day. And I just watched a video right before we did this interview of a young man. He couldn't have been more than 40. He might have 35, 40. He posted his electric bill. He didn't tell how many people was in his house. His electric bill was 150,000 shillings for 1 month in Virginia. And Virginia can be considered parts of it a high cost state, but most of Virginia is not high cost compared to other parts of the country. Imagine that 150,000 shilling light bill, just electricity. And he posted it. So, I tend to believe it. I know you can't believe everything on the internet, but yeah, that's the difference. Oh, for sure. So, in the United States, there are limitations for people with melanin in their skin. I'll put it that way. What the continent overall gives you is the opportunity to enter industries where blacks are not allowed. I'll just use that term, like the oil industry, like the mineral industry, like manufacturing, technology. All those opportunities exist here for us because the people on the other end of that technological spectrum or doing business usually have melanin in their skin. They're local Kenyans, or they're from South Africa, or they're from Nigeria, or they're Chinese, they're whatever. That barrier to doing business because of the color of your skin and the perception of the color of your skin doesn't exist here on the continent. And I know some people say, well, it does somewhat, but it doesn't exist as much as it does in the States, not even close. So, there are always opportunities being presented to me regarding doing business here. Like I recently helped an American start a mushroom farm here. Another American reached out to me to look to expand the recognition of their taco seasoning brand. Another American reached out to me to look to establish a used clothing business here. Alcohol brand in the United States is looking to enter this market. We're in the midst of finalizing that deal. I've helped Kenyans export products to the United States, leather goods, coffee, tea. So those are the types of things. Like, I'll give you an example. We know how much coffee is produced here in Kenya. Right. There are very few Black Americans in the coffee business in the United States. So all the people importing coffee from Kenya that goes into the United States, majority of them are not melanated, even though coffee is grown here on the continent in so many different countries.
Hey Web Nation family, something real is happening now. Spots for our November trip 2026 is actively being taken and people are booking now as you watch it. That means this is no longer an idea, it's happening guys. It's real. If you've been watching these stories and you are feeling that pull and you're telling yourself, I will do it someday, that someday is now. Right now you can secure your spot with just a deposit. Now if you want a payment plan, then your deadline for payment is this April 30th. The question is simple. Are you coming? Click the link in the description now to secure your spot or scan the QR code and I'll see you in South Africa. Now let's get back into the video.
So I built community here by just being me. And by just being me, because I've always been a leader, I've always been polite, pleasant, I've always been someone who's attracted other people. And I recognized that as a young man, probably in grade school, that I had that ability to attract people, help people, and lead people. So by just being me and Kenyans being welcoming, and then finding other expats who are on the similar journey, the community has grown organically and it continues to grow. And you know, social media also helps that. Like I'm just discovered the whole power of social media in the last couple of years. It's super powerful. I was just at our event on Saturday and someone recognized me at the event. It's like, you know, so continue doing things like this helps build community. And like I said, it's been relatively easy to build community because I built community in the States. So it's just a continuation of what I've always done. So as I was saying before, we've been fortunate enough, when I say we, myself and other expats like me, to come to Nairobi, come to Kenya, and be welcomed and build relationships, personal and professional relationships. So one of the professional relationships that I've built here in Nairobi is with a restaurant called Under the Radar. And we're here today to do a tour of the facility. So let's take a tour. Under the Radar is a combination of a restaurant that has facilities that are covered and open. They host various events from birthday parties to conferences to meetings of various organizations like associations. So we're just doing a brief tour of this area. All the areas are available for either to rent or to occupy as a regular customer. One thing about Kenyan businesses, especially Kenyan restaurants and places where you can eat, is that they always have some type of facility or activity for children. And Under the Radar is no different. If you look out into this area, you can see that there's a play area for children, which is heavily occupied, especially on the weekends, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yes. How many people do you normally have on the weekend?
Approximately more than 100.
Okay.
Yes.
So
More than 100 people. That is not including kids.
yes.
We have more than 50, can be 50 kids or more on Saturdays and Sundays.
So the events you host here are about 100 people on average.
Yes.
And then
per weekend.
yeah,
that
per
is.
weekend.
Yes.
And they bring their kids.
Yeah.
So, typical Kenyan setup. The food is great here. Of course, there's alcohol.
It is.
There's 2 bars. Yep, 2 bars. There's also, of course, the kitchen that serves everything from pizza to nyama choma, which is Kenyan grilled meat, to fish. What am I missing? Bunch of other stuff.
Intercontinental meals.
Intercontinental meals.
African meals.
African meals. They also do Indian. They also do buffet setups for individual events.
Yeah.
So if we can walk this way, we'll take a look at the children's area. Now, I was telling you before how Under the Radar has partnered with several of the companies I work with here to promote our businesses, but also build business for Under the Radar. So we've done events here. The most recent event that we did on a large scale was a wine and whiskey tasting for 2 American brands. The American brands are Bro Brothers, based in Louisville, Kentucky, where we had an event in June where we hosted a tasting of their alcohols, specifically bourbon, gin, vodka, and rum. And then also at that event, we had a company called Water to Wine, which recently moved their production facilities to Kenya. Now the company is called Water to Wine Kenya, and they focus on the dessert wine. So at that event, which was in June, we had a tasting of about 50 people, 50, 60 people. And during that event, I was fortunate enough to be able to perform the tasting event, as well as provide a lecture on the historical connections between Kenyans and Black Americans. And I specifically focused on the relationship between Malcolm X and the Mau Mau, who were the Kenyan revolutionaries that helped free Kenya from the British colonial rule. Your society here is very peaceful. And I make jokes about this all the time. The only thing Kenyans rush for is driving. But other than that, it's laid back, which is a good thing. Part of the challenges in America is that everybody's always go, 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 fast, fast, fast. Barely have time to visit family or spend quality time with family or friends because you got to work or you got so many other activities that take up your life and hours of the day. You kind of lose yourself. So being able just to discover yourself here for me has been one of the greatest rewards. And Kenyans are very welcoming, and that's a very positive thing. We ended up starting another business here. I joined a team that has a nyama choma business, which we call barbecue in the States. And to see people, when like our recent event, we had 1,800 people. To see 1,800 people there enjoying our food and laughing and listening to the music, it don't get no better than that for me. I wanted to introduce you to Ron Raphael. Ron Raphael is an expat who recently relocated to Kenya, to Nairobi, Kenya from the United States. He has an exciting announcement to share with you. And like I said, this is part of the community and relationships that we established here as expats moving to Nairobi. Businesses, the Kenyans, the Nairobians have welcomed us with open arms, and now we're here to mutually benefit each other. So Ron, introduce yourself. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ron Raphael. If you are on YouTube, you'll probably find me under the handle of Black Gen X Traveler. Now, don't stay right here. The reason why I want him to stay right here is because before I even left the U.S., this man was known to me and I not to him. And the way we met is that I showed up to an event and he said, hey, so this is Kevin Morrison. I call him KS because he's also what you would say an advocate for men. What I will also liken him to is a record label executive, right? And all of us expatriates are superstars he's trying to sign and bring over here. And he helped me come here even though he didn't know it. The content and coverage that was happening here through Austin and other guys led me to him and then him to me. So I thank everyone, including him, that has with an open arms, including Kenya. And the phrase I use all the time is, I am in one of my favorite places in the entire world. And that right now, wherever I go, by the way, is Kenya, Kilimani, and in this case, Lavington, where I stay. I just realized I'm on the border. I'm a new guy, so forgive me, please. I didn't know where I was. Just a stone's throw away, and I'm in Lavington. So I thought I was in. But that being said, UTR and the people associated with this place, including the owners, Solo, Jules, the management, even the staff, they are such warm and loving people. It is amazing. It is indicative of what you will find here in Kenya. So, as a celebration, as a thank you for the people that have welcomed me, in addition to my subscribers, I'm having an event on the 28th right here at Under the Radar. In about 3 months, I went over about 1,000. It's about 1,100. It's starting to snowball. And now I have two things to do now. I have to plan a party, and I also have to shoot content. And I'm shooting more and more content. And now things are starting to snowball, as I said. Sponsors have come along. So we're going to visit in a moment one of the people that has worked along with Kevin for some time, and that is the Wazawazi brand owner, Chebet. And she's at Valley Arcade, which is not too far from here. And this is just an example of what it is like to be an expatriate and part of our team. Come on over, man. We need you here. We need to fill the ranks.
From a personal standpoint, the lack of stress and tension that's here for me as a Black American. And my easiest example here is your traffic police. They don't carry guns. In the United States, every police officer carries a gun. And that interaction with a bad attitude and when a gun's involved could be negative for me. So that was one of the first positive cultural adjustments that I made here. And it's just as simple as that. Other things that were similarities or cultural adjustments that were positive. The food's the same. You know, we eat ugali in the States. We call it something different, but it's pretty much essentially the same thing. And by the way, they also eat ugali in South Africa. They just call it something different. So once I started noticing the cultural similarities, nyama choma, barbecue. You know, barbecue is people think it's uniquely American. Obviously, it's not, because people grill meat all over the world. But yeah, just seeing those similarities. Okay, ugali, rice, chicken, grilled meat. I'm good. was an easy adjustment. Well, the first thing I was surprised about was the cost of automobiles here. Comparatively, the automobiles here are more expensive than the United States. And I know part of that, is because I have a car dealership in the States with me and my brother. And cars are definitely more expensive here than they are in the United States, especially secondhand cars. Actually, and new, because I know the government has such a big tariff and tax on new and used cars coming into the country. So that was the biggest surprise. Many people still question the fact that America is not my number one choice as a place to live and a place to grow old. But that's only because, in my opinion, two things. Some of them don't want to know the truth, and the rest can't admit that America is as problematic as it is. So that's is how the culture here is non-confrontational. Very few, like Kenyans, they don't really fight. America, they fight a lot. And sometimes over some basic things. I'm sure you've heard of road rage. Road rage should be at an epidemic level here based on the way Kenyans drive. But it's not. And road rage in America, unfortunately, leads to people losing their lives because people carry guns. So the fact that Kenyans are so peaceful and non-confrontational, to the point where that made me adjust. Because you carry your culture with you, and Americans carry their culture with them to other parts of the world, oftentimes to their detriment. Like being confrontational, like it helped me calm down, and Kenyans, Kenyan or other people here from East Africa, like arguing ain't really their thing. Yeah, so that was a pleasant surprise. Quality of life versus possessions versus material things. That's an emphasis of America, an emphasis of the West. You need to have certain amount of cars or certain clothing, certain this. None of that stuff really matters to me anymore. Like, of course, I wouldn't turn certain nice things away. Certain nice things I would, but yeah, they don't really matter to me because I'm able to wake up every morning and have my needs met on a daily basis. And I've been able to do that. I've been here in Kenya for 9 years, on the continent for 14. So having the ability to visit 54 different countries, which was relatively affordable. The cost for me to travel from here to South Africa is the same as the cost for me, or less for me to travel from New York City to California. And to me, that's priceless. Like, it's New York City and it's Los Angeles, but it's still America. So I can literally go to another part of the continent. Actually, the same cost for me to travel from Kenya to Nigeria. Like, the cultural difference and the difference in the land is much more fulfilling than it is in the United States. Like I say, you're still in the United States. So yeah, those are things that matter to me more than material possessions. And material possessions never really mattered to me a lot. Like, I have a story to tell, and by the way, I'm going to write a book as soon as I go back to the States. I'm going to start the process. Like, my journey is priceless, and it will be priceless for the rest of my family for generations to come. They will have a book or books about me to read. Sacrifices, and that I had to make, and I'm still making. I still have family in the States, so I've had to sacrifice seeing them regularly and spending time with them. So that's a sacrifice that I've had to make. Like my father is still alive. He's in his 80s. But when I do go back, I make sure I see him for that reason. And like I said, I have a grandson now, so I don't get a chance to see him on a more regular basis. But I do see him when I go to the States. So just sacrificing time with friends and family. Luckily we have modern technology like WhatsApp, and other ways to do video calls, which help. But it is still a sacrifice for sure. The amount of stress and frustration would impact me physically and mentally. It will continue to impact me. Or worse, I would have to become, someone who fought against the system, like a Malcolm X, like a Martin Luther King, like a Ralph Abernathy, like a W.E.B. Du Bois. But my fight would have been more towards Nat Turner than it was towards those individuals. And, fortunately, two of the most prominent individuals, they were both killed trying to fight for equality, which is, most recent prominent individuals were Martin Luther King and Malcolm X that most people know. They were both killed. So I wasn't willing to sacrifice my life for a chance for things to be better, because those men sacrificed their lives and the amount of improvement has not been substantial in my opinion. I'm definitely a different person. First of all, let's start with the immediate impact of me visiting the continent of Africa. Like I said, when I first stepped foot here, as a Black American, I have more pride on where my ancestors originated. I'm more optimistic about the future because of being here on the continent. I have more peace, less stress. I'm the cheerleader for the impact of relocating from the United States, period. And unfortunately in the United States, there's still a lot of people, especially Black people, that are not comfortable with their African heritage because of all the negativity and propaganda they've been fed. But I'm an advocate for relocating for a better life, period. It doesn't have to be Kenya, it doesn't have to be South Africa. I had a friend who relocated to the Philippines, and his life improved exponentially to the point where one of his siblings contacted me and said, "Thank you for saving my brother's life." So that's what has been one of the biggest changes, is just realizing that your quality of life can be better, and America is not the best place for you to have the best quality of life, period. I'm old enough to be able to say that confidently. So my confidence is higher. My outlook on life is better. I'm so excited about this journey for the rest of my family in the United States. I recently became a grandfather. So my grandson will be able to, my grandson will be able to do something I was never able to do at his age. Right. So whenever he gets here, he's 2 now, but eventually he's going to be here at 5 years old, 3 years old, or whatever. When I was 3 years old, nobody was taking me to here on the continent. So those are some of the things that excite me and make me optimistic. And life is about will, implanting the will in me to live long. Internet can't prepare you for climate. Internet cannot prepare you for language. Unless there's an episode I've never seen an episode where people visited where language was really focused on. Like, here, most people are trilingual, 4 languages, minimum they know 2. And then, things like the accent, like they speak English here, but there's a difference between Kenyan English, which is what I call it, and American English. That's where the visiting's gonna help you by doing that. First time someone tried to scam me. Oh. Yes, that's when reality clashed with my expectations. I'm normally a trusting person and a person that can build good rapport, but the first time someone tried to scam me was when reality clashed. Luckily, I'm not scared and I'm not weak, so I solved that problem quickly, actually. When I say relatively quickly, I fixed it. I got my money back. I had to do that twice here. So yeah, scamming's not something that's going to happen to me anywhere. I would tell myself that eventually my Africanness, and I know that's not a word, will be unlocked to its full extent. So just let me give you a short, clear example. You know, we don't have a mother tongue, Black Americans. Whatever mother tongue we had, we were forced to forget it. So when I hear someone speak in their mother tongue, it fulfills me in a way that oftentimes I can't describe, because I know the tonal inflections of their mother tongue means something different and conveys different feelings. But I also know I don't have that. And that was something that was lost. So just even hearing people speak, you know, in their mother tongue or their local language, obviously, you know, like here Swahili is dominant, but then of course people have their mother tongue, is something that has unlocked something in me that had been locked away all those years in the United States, because all we spoke was English. And the only time we did hear maybe Swahili would be once a year, or if we had other African immigrants that we befriended and we heard them speak amongst their family or their friends who also spoke the same language. But yeah, I would tell my earlier self, my African spirit, pride, and heritage would eventually be unlocked to its fullest extent. First and foremost, visit. Don't just rely on social media, but of course start with social media to help you understand what the place is like where you want to visit or potentially relocate. Then you visit. Then you visit as often as you can until you decide that you're good here or you're not good. But visiting is the first piece of advice. And then of course, while you're there, you can go to any part of the world and only hang out with Kenyans, or only hang out with people from the States, or only hang out with Indians, or only hang out with people from Indonesia. Make sure you immerse yourself as comfortable as you can with the local culture, with the local people. And one of the easiest ways to do that I found here was through food. Eat the local food. And most oftentimes, the version of the food you're comfortable with is also available in that same country. So here in Nairobi, can we get Jamaican food? Yes. Can we get Chinese food? Yes. Can we get pizzas? Yes. So food is one of the easiest ways to connect with people that are not just like you and find out what the country's like. That's the advice I would give. Anyone who's arrogant enough to believe that the West is the be-all and end-all from a education standpoint, from a cultural standpoint. You know, there are a lot of people that come here, not even just the West. There are a lot of people that come here and say, hey, this is Africa, they're backwards, they're not progressive, they don't have technology. Anybody with that mindset, don't do it.